I don't have anything like a video camera or anything.
Okay.
So. If my daughter was here, she'd be all over it too. But since she's not, it's the water under the bridge.
Okay. Valerie, we're meeting today to go over the differences between fourth grade and fifth grade math standards in the state of Louisiana. Because as you leave fourth grade and now you're going to teach fifth grade math, these are some of the things that you want to know prior to starting to plan. Just give you a heads up and make you more confident as a teacher. So you'll be a master teacher in fifth grade as well as fourth grade math. So these are the standards that we printed off of, or I printed off of the Louisiana Department of Education's website. And all I did was I took what was here and I compared it to here in fifth grade.
Okay.
And so we have the differences. Fifth grade does a lot of building off of what you taught in fourth grade last year. So if you look here in operations and algebraic thinking, in fourth grade you teach place value and you add and subtract to 1 million. In fifth grade, we also teach place value and expressions, which is our order of operations where you do parentheses, then exponents, then you do multiply and divide from left to right, and add and subtract from left to right. And the thing that we used with the kids was PEMDAS. And then we had them write it on their paper, and that gave them the first letter of each of the operations that they would do.
Okay.
Although I will just say this, parentheses is not an operation. It's exponents is not an operation, but we do call it the order of operations, right. Okay? If you think about it, parentheses are just there to state which ones are going to multiply or divide or add or subtract first. Okay. So, anyway, fourth grade, you multiply by 1 and 2 digit numbers. And in fifth grade, you multiply multi-digit numbers. Really, we're going to do maybe 4 or 5 digits times 2 digits. But in the grand scheme of things, they need to be able to multiply multi-digit numbers. Okay? Something that we do is that I know you know traditional multiplication, and it frustrates the children. Okay? A strategy that I used was the lattice method. And let's do 424 and times by 12. So 424 is going to go here, and we have 3 digits and 3 boxes going across. And 12 has 2 digits, so 2 boxes going down. And then you draw your lattices. And this box corresponds to this to these 2 digits, 4 times 1. This top part of your box is going to be for your tens digit, and this is for your ones digit. But 4 times 1 is just 4. So we have 0 in the tens, 4 in the ones. 2 times 1 is 2, 0 in the tens, 2 in the ones. 4 times 1, once again, 0 in the tens. Okay, 4 times 2 is 8. 0 in the tens, 8 in the ones. 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. Now, the simple thing about this is your children can do this part, but where they struggle is, what are you going to do with these numbers now that you've got them? And then a lot of times they're jumbled and they, they're just out of line. They're going to add now in the lattices or in the diagonal lines. So 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. You're going to carry up to the next diagonal just like you would do in regular math. 4 plus 1 is 5. Then you take all these numbers right here, write them down, and there's your answer.
Awesome sauce.
Okay. So, in fourth grade, you divide by 1-digit numbers. And I'm sure that y'all did the multiply, divide, subtract, and then bring down. You did your family and repeat. Got your little rover in there. Okay. In fifth grade, you're going to divide whole digit numbers. And you're going to have up to 2-digit divisors. I'm going to show you another strategy that works, and it's called partial quotients. And I'll tell you who told me this was our math supervisor, Miss Manuel. She showed us this. This was also in Engage New York that we taught from 2 years ago. But partial quotients, you might have 205 divided by 15. And the kids look at that and be like, oh no, Miss Paul, that's a big number. Well, it's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take out groups of 15 from here. And that's why we're taking partial quotients. We're going to take small groups. 15 times 10 is 150. I'm going to write 10 right here and box it in. It's going to be important later on. So 15 times 10 is 150. Okay? And our kids can then subtract. They know how. Now, we have 55. We can't take out a group of 10.
Mm-mm.
But your kids are going to look at you and say, Miss Paul, I know that 15 times 3 is 45. Can we take that out? They just know 15 times 3. So I'm going to take out three groups of 15. 3 times 15 is 45. And I'm going to subtract and get 10. I'm going to circle my remainder because you can't take 15 from 10. 10 is less than 15. So we know we're done dividing. 10, and then I'm going to take these numbers that I've boxed in, the partial quotients. There's my answer. And this is my remainder. Both this lattice method and the partial quotients can be found on YouTube. There's all kinds of videos out there. Watch them before you teach it so you get that math terminology in there. I am guilty of having to look them up. As I'm writing lesson plans, I'm looking up and I'm making notes, or I subscribe to, or I sign into my YouTube, and I'll save videos for me. So, and all you need is your email address to do that. Okay. So we've covered place value or operations and algebraic thinking, multiplying and dividing. But now we're going to get into 4th grade teaches factors, multiples, and patterns. Guess what? 5th grade does not teach. They're expected to have already mastered this and remember this. But in reality, your children are probably going to need a mini lesson, a spiral review, something during RTI time. Even your top group that doesn't always come to your table during RTI could be given a little mini lesson like on a tablet or a computer. Go watch this lesson and do this. You know, give them a worksheet or an activity to do that has them review this on their own, because a lot of your top group can do that. But now your other groups, you're going to need to teach them from that concrete where they're touching, feeling, and then to representational where they're drawing, and then abstract. Okay? Even in a mini lesson, it's best to go ahead and just do it quickly to let them see it. And you might want to spend a few days before you start fractions doing this, okay? Fraction equivalence and comparison. That's taught in 4th grade. Y'all probably use fraction strips. Well, that's not taught in 5th grade, but I still used fraction strips. We compared quickly during a little mini lesson. I think we did it in a spiral review, if I remember correctly. So, and to be honest with you, a spiral review wasn't quite enough for my lowest group. So do a little bit of pre-teaching the week before during RTI. I say pre-teaching, it's going to be a review lesson, okay? Anyway, in 4th grade, y'all add and subtract fractions with common denominators. In 5th grade, we add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators, okay? But that's okay. That's where, you know, you've got your little, you've compared them, and you found common denominators and stuff, equivalent fractions. Well, there's also another strategy whenever we're adding and subtracting unlike denominators. 1/2 times 3/4. Or, I'm sorry, plus 3/4. Getting ahead of myself. You know, the thing that we used was boom, boom, pow, okay? Boom, boom, pow. And you're going to see that these arrows are going to be put right into this problem. Okay, 4 times 1 is 4. There's your new numerator. 2 times 3 is 6. There's your other numerator. And then the pow is where you multiply your denominators. 2 times 4 is 8. Oh, looky there. We got a common denominator. Wow. Okay, so you add your plus sign in there, and then you add 4 8 plus 6 8 equals 10 8. Of course, that will need to be simplified, and your kids can do that. 8 goes into 10 one time with 2 left over. And that gives us 1 and 2 eighths. And remember those math practices that we talked about? Our new math supervisor, Miss Anderson Peak, who's real big on those math practices. And you had already told me you were signed up for those workshops this summer, so that's great. So we're going to persevere and solve this problem. There's math practice number 1. Okay, 2 and 8 are both divisible by 2. Divide that out, you get 1 and 1/4. Okay, I'm going to show this to the camera just so they'll see what we were kind of doing here. Okay, now we're going to go back to 4th grade. You multiply fractions by whole numbers. In 5th grade, you're going to multiply fractions times whole numbers, mixed numbers, and fractions. Okay? Don't sweat it. We got this too, okay? You can find a strategy that works for your kids. And you know what? A lot of times you can go on YouTube or Google math strategies for multiplying fractions. And that will not only, if you do it before you teach your lesson, as you're making your lesson plans and all, you've got your memory refreshed on what terminologies to use. And then there's a lot of times there's little short videos that you could use as a hook.
Okay.
In your lessons. My pen is messing up here. Okay. So let's do 3/4 times 5/8. Okay. Whenever you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. My kids will add the arrows because we say it 100 times. Okay, 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 8 is 32. 15, 30 seconds is your fraction, is your answer to that. Okay, so whenever you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So whenever you divide fractions, if you'll remember, whenever you divide a fraction, you have to multiply by the reciprocal, or you turn that second fraction upside down. Always the second fraction, though. You have to tell your kids that 100 times until you're blue in the face and they're tired of hearing you. Okay, so let's use the same fractions. 3/4 divided by 5/8. Okay, so we're going to change that into a multiplication problem. We're going to multiply by the inverse or the reciprocal. 3/4 times 8/5. And then once again, you multiply straight across. And I always draw my arrows. My kids get sick of seeing them, but they know it. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay. And then this can be turned into a mixed number because it's an improper fraction. Right. 24 20ths. Okay, so 1 and 4/20. And both of these portions of the fraction are divisible by 4 because you have 1 and 4/20. And 1 and 1/5. There's your final answer. Once again, you're going to use that math practice number 1 because you're going to have to persevere in solving this. And that's one that you'll use every single day. And there's another math practice that says that you're going to find patterns. It's either number 6 or number 7. And they see this, that you've multiplied straight across. They can use that same pattern once they found the reciprocal or the inverse. So once they've turned that second fraction upside down, we got a pattern that works for us.
Okay. So
be sure to include your math practices when you're teaching your kids next year. That's something they're going to be looking for real big. Okay. Let's see. Okay, in 4th grade, you relate fractions and decimals. Like, for instance, 1/2 equals 5/10. Okay? In 5th grade, you're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide decimals. It's okay. I got your back on this one, too. Okay. So, when we add and subtract decimals, our kids brought their lined paper to school. We can use this as a tool, which is one of those math practices that they told us to do. Find a tool that works. We can use these lines instead of going horizontally for writing. We can use them vertically to line up decimal points. 3 and 5/10 plus 5/10. We've lined them up. Bring that decimal straight down, and you got your answer. Same thing for your subtracting. Okay, so now if you want to multiply a decimal, remember that lattice method that we already learned? Well, we can still use that, but watch this. If I have 1 and 5/10 times 2/10, okay? 5 times 2 is 10. I tell my kids, multiply it out. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Now, how many numbers are behind the decimal points in the problem? Okay, there's 2, and I have them circled in.
Okay.
So, how many numbers are going to be behind the decimal point in your answer or in the product? Same number, 1, 2. And then they add their decimal point. Okay? So, once you start this and they're working with multiplying decimals, they'll get into the habit and they can tell you mid-problem how many, or even at the beginning, how many numbers are going to be behind the decimal point in your answer or in your product. And they can tell you just by looking at it. But I always have them circled.
Yeah, I like that because that's gonna. I know that's gonna be an issue. No, where does the decimal point go now that I've solved the problem?
Right. So, and that is a problem. This is a way to help them, a little strategy to help them to identify that. Now, when we're dividing decimals, We can still use partial quotients if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But for instance, let's do 5 and 2500ths divided by 5/10.
Mm-hmm.
There is a video on YouTube, and it's called Swoop, There It Is. And I mean, these kids had a blast with this video. And they would go, swoop, there it is, swoop, there it is. And the kids got a real good kick out of it. But they remembered because they were happy when they were learning.
Right.
And so if you move the decimal point in your divisor one place to make it be behind the last digit, you're going to move it one place in the dividend. Okay? Move your decimal point straight up and you're done with it. And then you just divide like normal. And there's your answer.
Okay.
But the kids love that swoop, there
Swoop,
it is.
there it
Okay.
is.
And that's going to be in the notes that I leave you.
Be a big hit.
Yes, they like swoop, there it is. And in fact, whenever I use that video as my hook.
Okay.
And so they were like, they mastered it because I started off with some really simple problems. And I had them doing the swoop motion off of the video, and they enjoyed it. And it's really corny because in the video you've got teachers at the school using tennis balls or telephones. Swoop, there it is. Anyway, I think I dreamed about that. Okay. In 4th grade, y'all worked with 2-dimensional figures in geometry in perimeter and area, which was a flat thing. So you can take a piece of paper and have them find the area of it by measuring this side and multiply it. So area equals length times width. Well, in 5th grade, we're going to move up and we're going to do volume, which is area. Okay, so if this were 3 inches times 3 inches, your area would be 9 inches, correct? Okay, but what if I've added a 3rd dimension to it, which was your height, and it's also 3 inches? Okay, so length times width times height, correct? So we're just adding one simple step to something you've already mastered in 4th grade. So 3 times 3 equals 9, 9 times 3 equals 27. So your answer is 27 inches cubed.
Okay. So we're moving from squared to cubes.
From squared to cubed. One thing that you're going to do whenever you do this that made it easy for my kids to grasp this concept was we started off with the little unit cubes. Remember the little cubes for place value? We called those unit cubes.
Yeah. Okay.
And we would build figures and they would have to figure out the volume of that.
Okay.
One of the questions on the practice test had you find the area for shape A. I'm sorry, not the area, the volume for shape A. Find the volume for shape B, and then add those two volumes together to get a total volume.
Okay.
And another question was if figure A holds 56 cubic units and figure B needs 10 more, what would be the volume of figure B? Oh, well, you would have to take that 56 and add 10 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they need to be able to, okay.
So knowing your practice tests, and those are still out there, I'm not sure when they will update those practice tests, but they will. And the very last difference in the standards is in 4th grade, you have the relative sizes of measurement. Of measurement units. Okay, so you might look at a foot and an inch. Okay, and a foot's this big and an inch is this big. Okay, in 5th grade, you're actually going to convert units of measure. So, how many inches are in 4 feet?
Okay.
So you would have to multiply 12 times 4 and get 48. And they will need to know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. That is not on their conversion sheet that they get, or their sheet that they get to help them with their state standardized test.
Oh, okay. That's, wow.
Yeah, they did have like milliliters to liters, but they didn't have English conversions.
Huh.
So.
Do you think they assume that they would just know?
I think that they do assume that, but I know on the practice test there was a question that you had to multiply so many feet times 12 inches. So, anyway, and that really wraps up the big major differences between fourth and fifth grade. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have one question. Do you think that what skill is mostly seen on the test? Do you remember?
Mostly seen on the test.
Because I know in fourth grade it was fractions.
You're going to see a lot of fractions on there.
Okay.
A lot of fractions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to know
okay.
what to focus the most on.
So, and you will have identified for you your high priority standards.
Okay.
So the math department does identify those for you.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That didn't get on the end of it, but that's okay.
It's all right.
Oh,
Please don't break your neck in my house because I don't want to be sued.